everybody. I wanted to share with you a couple of thoughts today that I had as it relates to homeschooling. But first, let me give you a little bit of a backstory. So, like most Americans and like most people in general, I grew up with stereotypes of both black people and white people. And in my mind, white people didn't drink Kool-Aid, they didn't spank their kids, and they were always financially wealthy. We're on the flip side of that. Black people were always broke. We spanked the mess out of our kids to get them to act right. We drank Kool-Aid and had a very unhealthy diet. Well, in 2011, I was immersed in a predominantly white church where a lot of those stereotypes melted off from me. And I got to know people for who they are outside of a television screen and what TV and society wanted to tell me about who white people were and who black people were. Black people are often associated with poor language, poor mannerisms and things of that nature, while white people are always associated with education and speaking proper and all things good. But as I've gotten older, as I've gotten to experience and have had, many friends that are Caucasian, I've gotten to learn that there's a lot of things, there's a lot more similarities than there are differences. And I know with the recent news of like George Floyd and things just kind of coming back to surface, or rather, I don't want to say coming back to surface, they've always been present, but with more recent conversations taking place, I think that's probably the better way to say it. It's made me think about not only the stereotypes that we have in our country of white and black, but even stereotypes that we might have of other countries or cultures in our society. I'm very thankful that the Lord has given me the privilege to be able to be immersed in a predominantly white church, because then I could grasp an understanding and see the truth of who people are. People are not a monolith. Black people, there's no just one type of black person. There's not just one type of white person. But likewise, there's not just one type of Hispanic. There's not just one type of Muslim. There's not just one type. And I think we're coming to a time where we're starting to see people outside of those boxes. And I think that that's beautiful and that's awesome. So my mind started thinking about these various stereotypes and just kind of the ignorance that we have without really getting to hear individual people's stories and getting to know them better. And I think some of that, of course, you can't just take one and apply it to all. We don't want to make any hasty generalizations, but there can be something to be said about us learning more about other cultures and trying to understand, at least to some degree, beyond just appearance, understanding other people's religions and cultures and belief systems and struggles and injustices and stories of that nature. So what this prompted me to do was, instead of just continuing to go down the rabbit hole of looking at history, the segregation and the disparities in history, which we are all very well aware of, I also wanted to look at the unity in history as well as other cultures' history. I've found that to be very intriguing as well. So in line with that, I picked up a book and I said, I thought this would be really good for me and my kids to start reading. So right now we are in the middle of reading I Am Malala. I don't know if you can see that because it's so shiny. I Am Malala. And they have a young reader's version of this book, so you are not stuck, but that you are not trying to break it down for your young readers. Most young readers, I would say maybe fifth, sixth grade, could probably read that independently. It's a very good and very easy read. I've been reading it with my kids, and it's great to understand other cultures' struggles, because I'm Malala is talking more about the issue of education for women, for girls. And it just shows on a broader spectrum what other societies struggle with, what their fights are, and that you're not just talking about one type of person. Her father did a tremendous job with changing the way that she thought of and saw herself in a society that put women down and devalued girls. And so it's a really great book. And it's a true story, which my kids always find to be more interesting is when it's a true story. So to me, I was like, man, having all these conversations about history, I'm realizing that, some of my Caucasian friends have gaps. Of course, I'm realizing that I have gaps. No one can know it all, and we can't expect everyone to know it all. It's impossible to know it all, and we just have to be lifelong learners where we are continually putting ourselves in front of information that will help us to develop a heart of compassion and empathy for all issues. And everybody's going to have an issue that really tugs at their heart. And there's so many for us to actually address in reality. But there's going to be something that tugs at our heart that really calls us to action. But for us to be aware, I think, is very helpful, especially training and raising our kids to see other issues, not just the ones here, but ones elsewhere. I think is very important. I will speak specifically being an African American woman and raising, Black kids and things like that. Sometimes it just gets mundane for us to continue to go over the, the histories of Black when it comes to just the constant fight and the constant injustices. And I think for a kid, it can be very heavy. It can be a very heavy subject matter if you're constantly rehearsing those things. But what I find to be more of my goal is I want to look for the unity in history. I want to look for the parts of history where people came together and they stood up and they fought. Not only that, I want them to see that every culture has something that they're up against. The reason being is because the Bible says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. And whatever place on this planet your feet step onto, there's a principality there that is trying to cause division. And be that because of race, because of gender, because of financial, socioeconomic statuses, it is everywhere. But this is the battle that we fight here, and we fight many different ones. So I wanted to make that book recommendation if you are a parent looking just kind of beyond the scope of some of the history books, like a true story that's not going, that kids can relate to, because she actually was 10, I want to say, when she started. So it's really great for middle school students, and even great for girls, because as we're reading it, my daughter is asking a lot of questions, and it's allowing me an opportunity to affirm her being a female, because she was like, well, why are men treating girls like that? But being able to show her how God thinks of her and how God thinks of women and how God thinks of girls, that has just been a really great conversation starter. The next aspect, when it comes to exposing my kids to culture around the globe, and again, I can't fill every gap. We're going to grow up with some gaps, and I understand that. But I want them to get a little bit of a handle on various cultures. And you can do that through history and current events. Immersion, I find, is very helpful. Of course, it's helpful if it's an immersion, like a live immersion, where you're uprooting your family and you're living in a community of that particular culture and you're understanding it. But we can't all do that, right? So the best next thing that we can do is try to immerse ourselves in the understanding through books. And thanks to Pinterest and many other websites, we can immerse ourselves with the food too, which is always my favorite part. So this year we're going to attempt to do Around the World in 180 days, and just got these books for us to do. Comes with a teacher guide and a student workbook. You have to order more than one workbook if you like, because I don't know if I don't think you can make copies of these. I don't know, I'm not sure. But this goes around each continent. It goes around the world, literally. And you'd be studying the world history, geography, and the cultures. And it gives you like terminology. You'll study the religion, as well as current events. So it allows you to kind of go backwards into some of the history of the country, and it may also not challenge kids, but show kids like even the name changes of different countries and maybe how they formed and battles that were fought, religious beliefs, and land masses are so huge that there can be more than one religious belief. So it just kind of exposes our kids. Of course, with that, you can incorporate other books, documentaries, and just slow down, take your time, sit in the living room, have tea time with your kids and just enjoy exploring the different cultures. And in the back of this book, it inspired me to do something else. which some of you might already be doing. But this is what I would like to do this school year, is that every culture, every individual matters to God. And I would like to not just explore the history, the food, which is my favorite part, and the language and the tangible parts of it, but to actually pray for each culture that we study, because each of these cultures, every issue, whatever their disparity is, whatever their conflict is, to be able to pray for that particular area, for be it that continent or whatever country we're on, or whatever we might learn about, and to just pray for those people, because all over the world, those people matter to God. And we might not understand all the ins and the outs of their religious beliefs. We might not understand all the ins and outs of how their systems and their government are set up, but we can certainly pray that whatever is going on, that God would move on that part of the planet. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I hope that you guys have a fantastic school year as it relates to history. If I come across any other really good resources, I will make sure I let you guys know. Thanks for watching.